because we live in a world of so many hierarchies and so much measurement of everything all the time. Bigger bank accounts, better jobs, or faster runners, or even the Olympics. Just about everything that we get involved with in this lifestyle, in this life that we live, is about something being bigger or better or more advanced or more than the next thing. So we tend to put that same thing on people. Depending on what we think they have to offer, they're bigger or they're smaller, or they're more important or they're less important. Hello, and welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Jameelah, and I'm an author, a professor, and of course, a master manifester. And that's what I'm here to discuss today. I hope everyone's doing fine. I hope you've had an amazing weekend. I know this video is a little bit closer than what I usually post them, which is usually maybe like once or twice a week. But I had a new thought. So I was like, hey, let me share. What I'm discussing today is 5 things you have to remember about manifesting when you're waiting on your manifestations, right? And okay, so when I say that, it sounds really sketchy because you're like waiting on this one really specific thing, but really your life is happening the whole time. Your life is happening all day, every day, right? Something that's very important to remember is that you can't turn law of attraction off, and that you are always manifesting at any given time, right? In the current moment, in the present moment, what you want to call it, you can literally look at that as what you've culminated from your past. And then what you experience a few moments later is coming from what you experience in the future is coming from that present moment that you were sitting in. So it's a constant evolving, constant rolling out of what you're creating and then the results of it. What you're creating and then the results of it. So it's always important to remember when you're waiting on a manifestation, if it's something really specific or you have this really specific idea, something that you're trying to create, just know that the whole time you're manifesting every part of your day, all day, right? You're manifesting your attitude, your ideas, the way you see the world, the results you're getting back from people out in public. You know, the same reason why you can read a review at a business and someone say, this place has the worst customer service whatsoever. And you're just like, well, it's convenient, it's close to me, let me go check it out. And you treat it like royalty, right? So then you have to wonder what kind of energy was this person who created that review cultivating in their life and in their space. So number one, I'd say to remember when you're waiting on manifestations or you're working on trying to be more deliberate and intentional about manifesting things in your life is to remember that you are manifesting all the time. It's not just when you sit and meditate and go, and I'm thinking about that thing that I really want. And then you go out there and be ugly to the world and have an attitude with everyone. Well, that's not going to work out because you're still manifesting. You're still giving your energy out to the world, and you're still going to get feedback, even if it's not the big thing yet, right? Number 2 is, I always like to keep a list. Other people can't affect your manifestations unless you let them. Oh, that's a big one. It's so big because sometimes I subscribe to quite a bit of YouTube channels, especially ones on personal development or people that are on their own journeys and they're just sharing their experiences from moment to moment, day to day. And when I'm listening to some of the videos, sometimes I'm just like, you're spending a lot of time focused on what other people are doing to try to ruin your manifestations. And sometimes I can listen to it, and other times I'm thinking like, that's like not the right direction to go down. But if that's where you are, then that's where you are. Then that's perfectly fine, right? There was a time when I used to be very focused on how people were trying to take something away from me or trying to kill a dream I had. And then as I evolved further, I realized, well, nobody can kill your dreams. They can sort of, sully your world a little while they get to visit in your space, but they can't kill your dreams, It's so important to remember that only you get the power of creating in your experience. especially when you're being deliberate and intentional. So even when things happen or we experience things that we don't like or we don't appreciate or that we feel was being done to us in some kind of way, our power comes in the way that we decide to react and the way that we decide to see that circumstance or that thing that we feel was done to us, right? I mean, I deal with this on a regular basis all the time, just in general, thinking that I have to always be in the driver's seat when it comes to what I'm creating in my life and my space. Sometimes when I get real laid back and easygoing, I can easily fall into the passenger seat, and then I look up and go, wait, I didn't want to turn down this road. And then I get aggravated with myself. So it's important to remember that you are a part of that relaxing and getting in the passenger seat and turning down a road that you didn't want to go down. There's nobody else that is making you do these specific things. So as much as we like to think that that is possible, other people don't have the real ability to create in our lives, not the way that we think that they do. They have the ability to try to, throw some soil in our pathway. We can either step over it, or we can walk around it, or we can just decide not to see it at all and step right on top of it. It just all depends on us. And sometimes when emotions are not being regulated or we're not paying attention very closely, we can easily fall into the trap of thinking that somebody's doing something to us. When really, even if they're doing some nonsense, or they're being manipulative, or they are working or picking at your weaknesses or something like that, you're still allowing this to take place if you engage it. And that's important to remember. So that's number 2, right? Number 3, when you're manifesting, it's important to remember that nothing is really a big thing and nothing is really a small thing. We can make something really, really big in our heads and it'll become this unachievable task. We can make something really small and it'll become this just a little bump in the road, something we're taking care of, and we create it and we get it and then we move forward. It just depends on how you see it, right? I know Abraham Hicks, I'm sure a lot of people listen to Abraham Hicks. You love the law of attraction conversations. I do too. But she's always saying that there's no difference between a button and a castle. It's so hard for us living in this 3D world that we live in and trying to see a tree that stands, 50 feet tall as the same as, this little plant that I have sitting here in my house that's about, 3 feet tall. And someone's telling you, well, they're the same, right? Because we live in a world of so many hierarchies and so much measurement of everything all the time. Bigger bank accounts, better jobs, or faster runners, or even the Olympics. Just about everything that we get involved with in this lifestyle, in this life that we live, is about something being bigger or better or more advanced or more than the next thing. So we tend to put that same thing on people. Depending on what we think they have to offer, they're bigger or they're smaller or they're more important or they're less important. And so we do the same thing even with the manifestations that we're working on. We put really big high price tags on some things, and where the lower hanging fruit are for us, we put a low price tag on it. And sometimes when we get the lower hanging fruit, we're just like, that was cool, whatever. And then when something that we think is so big comes along, we almost make it unattainable, right? So the best way to manifest something in your life that you really want to achieve, but you're you're seeing it constantly slip through your fingers, is to make it not big. The bigger you make it, the harder it is for you to manifest it. The bigger the promotion is, the harder it is for that promotion to come to you. The bigger the vehicle is, the harder it is for you to attain a vehicle. This can go on and on. Whatever you make too big in your life, it makes it very, very hard to achieve through the mindset of thinking things are big and small, right? So if you see everything as, this is something I desire, this is something that I would like to see in my life, this is something that I would like to experience, this is something that I feel would be in addition to the happiness that I'm already experiencing in life, then you look at the ways that you can create it in your space, right? You want to own something or do something or be something, go look online for the first steps to do it, but take the bigness out of it, right? So even things that take longer aren't big. They're just things that take longer for you to get to because you're just physically further away from them, but they're not bigger things. And so you think you are. further away from it, but you're not always, right? Because sometimes you get that mega boost right at the finish line. I've seen runners do it in the Olympics, and they look like they were losing that race, but they get to the last quarter of that race, and then they're all the way across the finish line and winning that prize that they coveted, right? I see that all the time in my daily life. I like to play a game called Words with Friends. And sometimes I'm like losing horribly, and I'm just like, this is not going my way. But I play because I enjoy it. I like words. I love playing with words. I love learning new words. I always call myself a wordsmith. And then it'll be right at the last minute, I'll get these letters that allow me to get like 125 points. And I'm like, dang, I thought I was losing the whole time, and the whole time I was okay. So you have to remember, stop making things so big so that you can see them as attainable in your life, right? Another one is number 4. You can never ask for too much. When you're thinking about manifesting, a lot of people think, well, I'm going to ask for a coffee that I want from Starbucks only today. And then Wednesday, I'm going to save that for this. You don't have to save anything, and you don't have to believe that there's a such thing as asking for too much. The only way that the idea of asking for too much comes into play is when you don't really believe what you're asking for. So you may ask for, I remember times, where I still have limitations on money and how much I feel can flow into my space at any given time. And because of that limitation that I know I have, I don't spend a lot of time thinking about it, because I'm like, well, I don't want to give it that much power. And the least power I give it, the more financial abundance flows into my space. But there was a time when I only believed for $10,000, right? For a specific thing, or idea, or a task. I was like, dear universe, just bring me, it was 15, just bring me $15,000. And I remember going on and on about that and meditating on it and thinking about it. And at the time, it was for a reason of wanting to, after a divorce, wanting to salvage my home. I wanted to keep it, and that's what it was going to cost to keep it. And then, I finally let it go. I was just like, well, I guess I didn't get the $15,000. I'm going to have to let this house go, right? And this was probably about 10 years ago at this point. Maybe, yeah, about exactly 10 years ago. And I was excited about, the manifestation, but it didn't come. And then right when I was moving on to something else, I was like, well, what else can I do with my life? It's not going to be this house, so what else am I going to do? I wound up receiving the money from one of the most unlikely sources possible. I mean, when I tell you unlikely, the most unlikely source possible. And so while I was thinking the whole time that none of it was working in my favor, it was all playing out, right? But the idea of asking for too much really occurred to me in that case, because it was really hard for me to believe for $15,000. And I was just going on, and I was pushing my limits. It was hard for me to believe that, because I didn't come from an environment where that was free flowing. Like, easy. If someone was getting off of $15,000 for you, it was likely their whole savings. And that's just what it was. And so I was always thinking, like, if you are in a mindset of asking for $1 million, but you don't really believe in $1 million, then that's the only way that asking for too much comes into play. But best believe the universe has the resources and the abundance to create and expand and develop and give you whatever it is that you're asking for, as long as you believe that it is capable in your life. And so for that to work, what was important for me was to do these things in increments. Right? So one day I was asking for 1,000, and next it was asking for 5,000, and this is just money. But I mean, other things, even career-wise, certain amounts of money I was asking for in career, I would ask for certain amounts for people to pay me, but I'm like, do you even believe that you're worth that right now? Like, you intuitively know that you're worth that, but beyond that, your deep belief, your deep conscious belief, do you really believe that you're worth that? Because you know you are, but do you know that you are? And so that's something I had to deal with. And so I've seen the level of abundance when it comes to what I'm able to create in the workspace continue to expand over time and career-wise, because I always do things in increments. I'm like, if I don't believe it, then it's going to be pretty much useless, right? So you can never ask for too much as long as you believe what you're asking for. And then number 5, last but not least, when you're waiting on your manifestations, it's important to remember that evidence of your manifestation usually shows up in the least thought of place. It shows up where you least expect it. So you can really be harping on having a specific mate, or you can really be harping on creating a specific lifestyle for yourself, or a career, or whatever it is people are asking for, a beautiful trip where you spend 10 days here, 10 days there, 10 days somewhere else, and you're completely and fully, abundantly, financially secure in this venture. Or you're building a business and you just want to see it, shape itself from the ground up. You value people a whole lot and you want to see these very rich and nurturing friendships show up in your life that are ones that challenge you, but also complement where you are in your spiritual journey. Whatever it is that you're trying to create, the evidence of it usually shows up when you least expect it. So like when you're looking around for signs, because I know if you're like me and you just gobble up a lot of this content, you're probably on YouTube looking at other channels where they talk about, synchronicities and evidence of your manifestation showing up on a regular basis. And then sometimes when we watch these videos, we come right from it and we start looking around for the evidence, right? But the evidence doesn't show up like that. It just doesn't, it's not the case. The evidence shows up when you least expect it, and usually from environments or places where you least expect to see it from. So you'll have a good meditation in the morning. Say you're trying to attract these like-minded friends or some kind of a mastermind group, or like people that are along the same spiritual journey as you are in your life, and eyes itching, and level of authenticity. And then you drop it. You go off into the library and you're just looking around trying to find a little evidence of it. And you see something that might be evidence, but you're just like, I don't know. But it's really, you're trying too hard. And then you forget about it till the afternoon. And then you wind up going into the coffee shop. It was like, oh yeah, I just wanted to grab something really quickly. I just wanted to have a good coffee in the afternoon. And you wind up bumping into someone at the front door and you have a really good conversation with them. And while it's not that ultimate mastermind person, or it's not the ultimate friend connection that you were looking for, it's kind of evidence for you that the moments where these things can show up can happen at any given time, right? I love that idea, because to me it's almost like a treasure hunt, like a puzzle, like a scavenger hunt. And you're just walking around and you're not necessarily hunting, but your subconscious mind is still at work. All your law of attraction is working for you. You're walking out, you're always manifesting at any given time. And you can really just let your guard down and be free and be happy in your existence, because you know that the evidence is going to just show up at any given time. Things you need to know, things you need to understand. If you're taking on a new venture, I'm going to be taking on a new venture really soon in my life. And a part of me is like, do I have the tools in order to do this? But I know that the crumbs, the evidence of me being in the right place and having enough to offer this particular venture is going to keep showing up the least I put pressure on it, right? And if it's a mate or something like that, that's even easier. You'll get the evidence of it much easier. Money, definitely same old thing. You walk by, or I've been receiving a lot of money from different places these days, right? Money that's not necessarily needed, not necessarily expected, but they've just been dropping in my life from different directions. When I say money, it's between like the $300, $700 range, right? And I'm just like, hey, I wasn't even looking for anything. That's so cool. One of the biggest things that I noticed is that for some reason I had someone's old phone number and I was getting messages from them in my text messages. And right before these little pockets of money kept showing up in my life, someone was getting like approved for loans or credits or something like that, and all these odd number amounts, right? Well, some of these odd numbers are very, very important to me. One of them is like my childhood address of my home. And I was like, well, that's interesting, right? And then one of them was like repeating digits. And I was like, okay, so these messages aren't even for me. And then like a week later, I'd received this money that I wasn't even expecting to receive, right? From unlikely sources, right? And I find that to be one of the coolest things. So little evidence like that shows up where you're not even thinking about it, and something that's like so far-fetched, like these messages weren't for me, but it was coming through to me, and it was giving me an idea of abundance, and like, oh, look, money's always out there. Look at that. There's always some abundance abundance. There's some financial freedom to be had by somebody somewhere. And it just happens to be falling in my text message box, right? So anyway, I kind of went on long for this video, but hopefully 20 minutes is not too long. So 5 things that you should keep in mind when you're waiting on your manifestations. Always just keep in mind that you're always manifesting, that other people can't manifest in your life. They can't create unless you allow them to do so. There's nothing that's big or small unless you make it big or small. Another one is you can never ask for too much. Too much is only what you're willing to believe that you can bring into your life. And then the last one is going to be, you always receive evidence along the way from unlikely places. When you just relax and be like, I'm just going to let this play itself out, you'll receive that information that you can use in order to pick you up and keep pushing you forward and helping you, get excited about your manifestation all over again, right? So anyway, I hope you all are getting everything you want and choose in life, and that you are creating the abundance and the lifestyle that you choose, and you're not sitting around there creating by default, because then you become a pawn in somebody else's lifestyle, right? And you don't want to do that. It doesn't feel very good. I've done that before. Anyway, I hope you all have a wonderful, wonderful day, and I hope you get a chance to check out my book, Stop Waiting. I think I have, oh look, I happen to have a copy of it here. Stop Waiting. It's one of my favorites. How putting off my dreams nearly wasted my life. It goes through like all these epiphanies I was having when I realized that I didn't have to let my life be default, that I could actually take control and become more than what was ascribed to me at any given time, right? And sometimes I pick it up and I inspire myself, right? And like I'm looking at one of my favorite passages in here, and it's called, What Do You Want? There's great freedom in knowing what you want. One day I found myself in a conversation with a fellow yogi discussing relationships. It was a lighthearted conversation about the ups and downs related to being involved so intimately in someone else's life. I don't give too many details about my past relationships, but I will chime in if something truly resonates with me and I can offer some positive input. She spoke about her 2 small children at home and how when she was 18, she vowed not to get married and raise kids unless her husband could provide a nanny when she needed and an option for her to stay at home with her kids. And I thought about how non-negotiable this was for this woman. She seemed to be completely comfortable with this request. And I think about what do you want, and as far as it goes along with what are you asking for, this is a great reference tool for myself, and it's also good for other people. When I think about how she just had it in her mind, she wanted a nanny and an option to stay at home. And I always thought that I was going to have to work really hard if I raised kids. And that's exactly what I did for a long time. So just remember that your manifestations are available to you. And if you need some inspiration about what's available to you often, this is a good reference. My book, Stop Waiting. But there's so many other books out there that I love and enjoy that discuss the same things. So anyway, I hope you all have a wonderful, wonderful day. And until next time, see you later.